Hey folks, welcome back to another exciting episode of Inside the NAL, the show where we bring you all the action. We recap everything that happened for the last week of competitive Rainbow Six matches for the North American League. My name is Jess Brohard, and I'll be hosting all the action, but I cannot do it without three of my favorite human beings in the world. First up, possibly best known for his hit song, Who Let the Dogs Out?
What's up, Belly. Jess? How you doing, girl?
I'm doing great. You're such a talented musician, and I don't think people tell you that nearly often enough. Next up, we have the most successful former Musketeer. It's Stokes.
I was the fourth Musketeer. They had to drop me. So, now there's only three.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah, but look how successful you turned out. So it's all good. And then finally, you might know him as Malcolm on Malcolm in the Middle. It's Blue.
Man, I wish I was him. He retired at like 17 with like $40 million or something like that.
I don't know how ain't that life. But hey, instead you're here hosting a show about Rainbow Six. So again, who is the real winner here? I think it's you.
Could be, yeah.
Well, we have so much to cover this week. As you folks know, we of course have the Challengers division to cover, we have the Canadian division to cover, we have the US division to cover, but before we get to all that exciting stuff, let's talk about LATAM. So we have two key matchups that we want to talk about. I believe we are going to roll a little bit of a clip for you so you can check out some of the highlights. But in a nutshell, we had Ninjas in Pajamas taking a 1-0 over FaZe, and we had Black Dragons taking a 1-0 versus MIBR. Here are some highlights, and I know Stokes, Blue, you watched these a little bit ago. What did you think?
Yeah, so this was a pretty good step up overall for FaZe Clan, despite the fact that NIP overall kind of got the advantage in this series and ending up with more points for it. FaZe has really been struggling as of late. If you look at the overall stats, we'll get that up in a minute. They're still around like 8th place right now. So it was good to see them at least being able to compete with NIP, who's really just been on fire, as I'm sure you're seeing by these clips right now. They've been firing on all cylinders, and while it was enough to net them this first map here, ultimately things still ended up battling back a little bit as FaZe was able to compete pretty well on map number 2, where things obviously got a bit more competitive. And if I'm remembering correctly, we'll get confirmation on the screen here in just a second. They were actually able to tie things up at the end of the day.
Yeah, quite the fall from grace for FaZe Clan, as Team 1's actually overtaken them inside of the standings. And that's quite the shocker. Team 1's a team that burst onto the scene at the Vegas Minor quite some time ago. John, you and I actually ended up commentating them there at their first LAN event. And they were quite explosive then, but went into more of a lull state a little while ago, but finally burst back into the top 4 inside of LATAM, where again overtaking FaZe and hotly contesting a lot of these top teams.
Meanwhile, another team really stepping up to the plate in this series was Black Dragons, who sit right above FaZe right now, around 7th place as well here, making some good impact against MIBR. Including on the second map here, which of course we'll get through the highlights from map number 1, but you're going to see on the second map, they're able to get themselves up to like a massive 5-1 lead on their theme park defense as well, which is a really strong statement for the Black Dragons there, considering that MIBR, of course, is one of the titans of LATAM, a team that regularly makes it out of the region, and of course outside of 2020 makes it to those global LAN events too, so it's good to see that there. And of course, ultimately being able to tie this this first map here helps them out pretty good as well.
Yeah, both of these squads, especially for me, MIBR not finding that success, as you just said, and for me, it seems to really be some of the roster changes that we've been seeing. They've found some success, but this team just needs to get down to the nitty-gritty and start working at what this squad has the potential to do. I mean, we have names on here like Cameraman, for God's sakes. This guy is a stellar player inside of LATAM, but this is no takeaway from Black Dragons. These guys played lights out inside of Theme Park.
Yeah, a massive lead, but as you're going to see here with the scoreline continuing to develop over this clip goes here, they nearly lost it there, but thankfully we're still able to close things out due to the massive lead they got for themselves at the beginning of the map, and ultimately left them in a pretty okay place. Oh, actually, FaZe is doing a lot better than I thought. My stats were outdated then, as they're sitting in 4th place right now. So.
And Stokes, I'm actually glad that you brought up those standings, because here we have the standings on our screen. I'm glad you mentioned Team 1 overtaking FaZe, and one note I do want to make about the standings as you see them. So these are the standings that are combined with Stage 1 and Stage 2, which will show you who's going to relegation, determine the prize breakdown and things like that. However, as far as advancing to the major goes, that determination is made only based on Stage 2 points. So those current 4 top teams based on Stage 2 points are Ninjas in Pajamas, Liquid, MIBR, and Team One Esports. However, we do have more matches to come, so those could shuffle around just a little bit more.
Those stats are also where we see teams like FaZe also sitting pretty low in the current stage rankings as well. Like I said, they're currently sitting in 8th place, so they do need to put in more work if they want to make it to the major.
Yeah, also, just to make sure, if you guys at home enjoy fast-paced Siege, you guys need to tune into LATAM and hang out with our friends Ace and Jackie, because I can tell you right now, you're going to have a damn good time. Those guys are electric inside of the casting chairs, and that gameplay is next level when it comes to aggression. If you want to watch some fun Siege, make sure to head over to the LATAM broadcast, and make sure you watch that Goyo game of the day. What a little fun thing. I hadn't noticed that one just yet.
Yeah, LATAM is such a fun region to watch because the matches are just so snappy, so quick, and it's a little bit of a unique, different scoring system. It's best of 2s rather than the other regions are best of 3s, so it's always fun to mix it up a little bit. But let's move on and talk about the Challenger division. So first up, we have the US Challenger League, and we've been saying this for a while, but Challenger League is really, it's anyone's ability, it's a path to pro. We have players who are currently playing in the North American League who came up through the Challenger League, and we did see our first matches of the Challenger League kick off Saturday and Sunday. So starting on Saturday, our matchups were, we had Ape taking a 2-0 versus The Last Dance. Beast Coast took a 2-0 versus Joe Esports. Before we move on, it sounds like you all want to say something about those matches, so have at it.
Sam, it's all you, man.
I mean, Valley, it's all me.
It's all
right.
you.
I mean, hey, listen. I'm going to be really honest. I did not expect Ape to be as successful as they were, and shout out to Ape. You guys played so well inside of this series. I'll be really honest with you guys. I coach a squad right now. We ended up scrimming up against Last Dance before they went into this series. I thought Last Dance was going to wipe the floor with Ape, and that doesn't mean anything against like the guys that I coach, but we got 3 rounds inside of our scrim session with them. Those guys were electric all over the map, very aggressive play style. They looked so good going into this matchup, and then Ape just wiped the floor with them. I mean, it was a hell of a series in between these two. Make sure you guys go back and watch it. But Ape 2-0ing The Last Dance is not something that I expected.
And for those of you out there that don't know who's on Ape, take a look at E United. Remember Forrest and Callout? They're on that team now, and they beat The Last Dance, who are the #1 team last stage for CL, which is insane. So the #1 team is out. We have no idea who's going to be on top now for that relegation game.
And we actually, speaking of Ape and how they are just a rising star, definitely a team to look out for. We have an awesome clip of Yaga clutching up and getting, I think it's a quad kill. So
Yaga.
go ahead and check out this clip.
To start getting this execute coming through for their favor, but they can't get through the wall here inside of Master. This is going to be so tough. They'll have to channel their way through. But Butters and Doodle going big here. Yaga with his 18th. Taking care of Butters. Can he find the 19th pick here? He'll take a lot of damage onto Young, but he's not able to find it. There goes Forrest with 1 pick. Can we get into overtime? A shotgun blast comes out. It's a 1v1, and there goes Yaga going massive. We're heading into overtime on map #1, ladies and gentlemen.
And I misspoke, it was just a double kill. I was getting confused. We actually have 2 clips coming up later in the show that both feature quad kills, so I was getting excited to show those. But anyway, our next US Challenger League matchups that you can expect to see this coming Saturday, 9 a.m. is going to be Ape versus Beast Coast, and 12 p.m. is going to be Rent Free versus the Favelas. So let's move on to the Canadian Challenger League matchups. So this past Saturday, the matchups we saw were Honor versus Duslats. Honor taking a 2-0 there. PDHM taking a 2-0 versus Slaughterhouse, which is kind of ironic and a little unfortunate. Oblivion took a 2-0 versus Windstorm, and Oceanus took a 2-1 combo breaker versus Depth Esports. And Blue, I know you specifically had a player on Oblivion that you really wanted to shout out.
Yeah, I mainly was able to check out the Oblivion and Windstorm game, and I was really impressed with the play in that matchup, especially on map #1 from Cabal on Oblivion's team. And that man's capability to move around the map and set up plays for himself was really impressive. There was at least 2 to 3 rounds, both on defense and attack, if I'm remembering it correctly, where he was able to line up like a massive flank and get anywhere between like 2 to 4 kills for himself and really save the team and bring them back into a round. That's a massively valuable player, and definitely one to keep your eye on both throughout the rest of the CL season in Canada and maybe as an up-and-comer into the actual Canadian division as well. We'll have to see how his future holds, but it looks pretty bright for me based on the way he played in that game.
You're absolutely right. I will definitely have my eye on Cabal, and I'm just a little bummed I didn't choose a clip from a game where he was playing, but that's okay. Anyway, if you want to catch some Canadian Challengers League action, you can do that this Sunday at 9 a.m. We're going to have Honor versus PDHM, and then 12 p.m. will be Oblivion versus Oceanus, so you do not want to miss those matches. But speaking of Canada, let's step it up a little bit and move up out of the Canadian Challengers division into the just Canadian division, I guess is what they call it. So last week, the matchup we had was Nordic versus Livid, and we did have Livid taking a 2-0 versus Nordic. So that means Nordic is going to relegation. Womp womp.
Yeah, very, very big womp womp. But what I can tell you about that series overall is that we had one of the best showings from Brian that we've seen in a very long time. And I know both of your guys' ears just perked up. Brian,
yes.
A former professional player that has been inside the scene for, I mean, Jess, ages. This guy is as old as time when it comes to Rainbow Six Siege. So seeing him be successful once again is a very, very good thing. But the bad thing is like, even though they get to keep their spot, they still have to deal with Mirage at the end of the day. And I don't see them getting around that obstacle anytime soon. Extremely excited for the matchup that we have on Friday, though, but we'll get to that in just a second.
And another player that we actually also want to highlight, kind of shout out a little bit, is Storms. We have a clip of him getting a quad kill. I know I'm right this time. I double checked my notes heading into it, so let's roll that clip.
Got that 1.5, so it's easy to land the headshots, but wasn't really much of an opportunity there. Storm continues to get more aggressive, and on drone is Rowdy Owly, and now he's in his grave. Storms inside a closet will pick up a second. Brian, whoa, and a shot from Storms! The 4K, and Zigolo is the last attacker now. Storms.
So it was not quite enough for Nordic, but it was still a great play, wasn't it?
The level of difficulty. Wow. Wow.
That looked like that like Jolton Deagle kill from the 10-mans a couple weeks ago. For anybody that saw that clip, Foxay posted on Twitter.
Yeah, as Milos would say, they thread the needle. Yeah. And so, you know, that was quite the shot there. Honestly, I'm gonna say a lot of these shots we've been seeing happening with the MPXs recently have mostly been happening with that 1.5 scope. A lot of these professional players really favoring that sight, and it seems to work. I mean, I might have to change things up.
Well, let's move on to what's going on next with the Canadian division. On Friday, we're going to see Altiora play Mirage. Now, that is a winner's bracket match. So that means the loser of that match will play Livid. We have our bracket up here on screen, and I mean, what are y'all's predictions here?
Mirage in two. Coach Jess, don't even ask no question like that, Jess. You know we stand Mirage out here. Flynn's on Mirage.
We
love
Mirage.
Flynn, even though he's like the worst rated player over there. But still, Mirage is a team that we love. Okay, and we're riding with them until the end of time.
I do have to say that Altiora's new roster did look pretty impressive in their opening match against Nordic, so I think that it's still going to be a pretty competitive series at the end of the day.
I will say this though, Nordic did just get sent to relegation, so you got to kind of weigh it with a grain of salt there.
Very true, very true.
Yeah, we stand Mirage, but honestly, I thought it was our job to be just a little bit unbiased.
Not for Flynn. For Flynn, we bias. We bias.
No, I'm biased as hell. I'm biased as hell. Listen, but here's the thing. Here's the thing about Mirage. I will be the most real person about that team. If they're gonna lose, I will tell you. Trust me.
All right, well, let's move on to another division that I know y'all totally are not biased toward, but it's the US division. I know this is the one that you three in particular love talking about the most, and we had a lot of really meat to get into here because, you know, we have the major coming up, we have the qualifiers coming up, we have relegation. Good things are happening, bad things are happening. As of last week, we already had Oxygen qualified for the major. Now, we of course don't know the exact standings for the groups yet. That will be determined shortly, but we do have the teams that are going to the major. So let's talk about Monday's matches first. I believe we have a bracket that we will be pulling up, but we have Dark Zero taking a 2-0 off of TSM, and we had the Sonics taking a 2-0 off of Temporal Storm. However, this was another one of those weeks where these 2-0s do not necessarily tell the story that the individual maps told. Would you three like to tell me the story of those maps and of those matches?
I mean, nobody was speaking, so I'm just gonna go ahead. Pretty disappointing showing for Space Station Gaming so far. The last matchup that they had against TSM was very on Space Station Gaming like, and now I'm starting to question, is this meta built for them? It doesn't seem like they're really having a good time, because Stokes and I were talking before the show started, and the aggression that is rewarded with this latest patch has helped TSM become better than ever. So seeing TSM win like that and be automatically qualified for the major, you'll love to see it.
Yeah, I can.
And obviously,
apologies, apologies, John. Go ahead, my man.
Oh no, I was going to move on to the next match, so you can go ahead if you're talking about that first match.
What I was simply going to say is to wrap up SSG's playstyle, or not playstyle recently, but their play recently with a nice little bow would be Consulate up against TSM.
Oh, yeah.
We have Fultz with 10 kills and no one else even remotely on the scoreboard. I mean, it was just a very, very rough and tumble match for them overall. I really want to see SSG get back to form. We saw Laxing, or not Laxing, excuse me, but Lycan tweet about it earlier on today. I really think that this squad needs to get the ball rolling. Going into qualifiers, especially for the major, there's something that has to give.
Yeah.
And just looking at the Tempo Storm and the Sonics game really quickly here before we move on to Wednesday's matches. Obviously, for those who weren't aware, Tempo Storm had a little bit of a technical difficulty at the start of the series, and they had to have Ken sub in for them. So, kind of expected results there. Unfortunately, wasn't able to perform as much as I think a lot of people would have hoped. So they kind of fell behind on that first map as a result of it. Brought Mark back in, who was the 5th player that was unable to play. Brought him back in, and just in that single second map, he was able to outperform everybody else on his team with regards to rating, entry stats, cost, KPR, 5 or 6 different, even in 1vx as well. He was tied with his other teammates as well. So some really impressive stuff there. Just really unfortunate that he wasn't able to play in the first battle.
If I break out my book here and see my positive notes for Tempo in our EU versus Tempo matchup, because I do positive and negative notes, folks. A positive, Mark, 1 map heater, rating of a 1.66, entry of a 3-0 rating. Cost at 86%,
86,
and then his KPR 1.29. Oh
Insane.
My God, that is something.
Yeah.
And 2 1vx's as well.
So we are going to get more into Tempo Storm. I know you probably want to talk a little bit more about them because they had some stuff go down on Wednesday. But before we move on to Tempo Storm and Wednesday, we actually have a clip that we want to show you from the Dark Zero versus TSM match. And of course, Dark Zero has qualified for the major. So this is just take a look at the clip.
Going to remain to be seen, as it's giving a small massage. But if Mint looks the wrong way, this is a fight that he can't lose. Down goes Achieved as DZ will start things off. Hot and Cold is inside of Escape as well. One for Mint and Eclipse. It's Hot and Cold down, but now Eclipse will join him. So all of a sudden, TSM finds themselves in a 2v2. It's Geo versus Bolo, but there he goes. He sprints on in. Skies wins it at the last second. Welcome to SI and welcome to the major. DZ.
Welcome to the major. That's just a nice, clean, confident victory to close out that overtime map. You love to see it, but let's move on and talk about Wednesday's matches, because Wednesday, like I said, a lot of stuff happened. We found out who else was joining Oxygen and Dark Zero at the major. So our first matchup, we had TSM taking a 2-0 off of SSG, and I know you are so eager to talk about this because we've touched on it already. But what's happening with SSG?
Oh, I figured that Veli would go first, but I guess we'll just jump right into it. So SSG as of
Veli already said his piece.
I mean SSG as of late, like we were talking about before, really just haven't been themselves. We haven't seen them be as influential over the map as they once were. It used to be if you're playing up against SSG, it's mostly SSG's world. They do a lot of things that a lot of teams have a lot of trouble with, as many times as I can say that. The biggest thing is mostly how well they can play structured siege. I mean, flank watches covered, thinking nades a brick wall, all of the entry capabilities, the adjustments, everything that SSG did was practically by the grace of God, but not anymore. I mean, all of a sudden this fall from grace happens and everyone just dominating them in every single capacity. And the thing is, for me, it's what Veli said earlier. I really do feel like it's this latest patch really helping these other teams harm SSG. Granted, SSG has been showing some signs of weakness. The cracks are showing. I just think that they really need to adapt.
I called it out on the show, and Jesse did too. I think their attack success rate before their latest matchup against TSM was like a 37.8%. That is embarrassing. That is embarrassing compared to their stage 1 stats, right? I believe they were like high 50%. That's unacceptable. And it's not just the aggression and the new patches. game planning, reading and reacting to different strategies. We saw them against Oxygen. When Bio was sitting on top of Cafe, his Clash for vertical behind him, and Foxay watching the flank, you saw Foe standing behind Bar. He didn't know what to do. By the time Space Station tried anything, there was about 30 seconds left in the round. This isn't a Space Station we're used to. We're used to the Space Station that adapts, adjusts, and executes for the win. They didn't show any of that this week, and it's pretty upsetting. I hope the world champs take it back to the top, because what we're seeing now, I'm not convinced these players belong on Space Station Gaming. They're the world best.
Well,
they're really good. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna rant on about them. I expect better from them, Jess.
Yeah, well, Veli, you know what?
can't
It's
even
not the end of
think
the line
right.
for them. They have another chance. They're heading Space
World
Station, World Station
Station
Gaming. I like what you did there, though. World Star Gaming. So they are going to the NA qualifiers, so they will have, they're not out of the running yet. There is still hope for our young Padawans, but let's also move on and talk about the other matchup that we had on Wednesday, where E United sent Tempo Storm packing. Tempo Storm are now going to relegation. Before we analyze this clip this match too much, let's go ahead and play this clip. It is such a beautiful, beautiful clip of Dream getting a quad kill. It was not enough, but it's so nice to watch. Enjoy.
Nitro cell for default, plant for Grixer. So just going to wait for the call and eventually blow that up when they inevitably go for it. Nice swing out here from the smoke, but it's actually Dream that swings in through Trophy. He's actually able to get a quad kill. What was that from Dream? It's all down to Rexon now as the plant goes off. Tempo Storm playing no games. Creator, the nail in the coffin in round 12 as they send us to...
Oh, wasn't that beautiful?
Definitely some cool stuff there. Like we said, like overall, this series was just it was a heart pounder, right? We had so many rounds just like that, where it was coming down to the final couple seconds. Just to give you like an interesting stat perspective here, E United wins that series, right? They had a single plant in 3 maps. So that should show you just how close this game was when it was coming down to the wire on so many different rounds.
And to add to that, a little bit of a contrast as well. Did you know that E United has the most plants inside of the NAL with 22?
Oh, really?
They had 22 plants walking into that series, and they only got 1 plant the entire time. So you can't tell me that that series was not a barn burner. These two teams are at each other's throats the entire time. And listen, I know Veli does a step up, but I got to talk for just 1 second, folks. Listen. You cannot discount Tempo's effort inside of what they've been able to do within the last 2 weeks, especially from Mark's front. I mean, that guy just turned on the burners. I mean, every single map dropping double digits, putting in the maximum amount of effort to take this team to the very top, at least of what they're capable of doing right now. But he needs some help, man. This team, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's down to the utility usage. I don't know if it's down to simply just somebody not stepping up when needed. But, I mean, inside of that series right there, you saw Mark, you saw creators, you saw a lot of positives for Tempo Storms. It's just that these negatives keep coming up and just getting in the way of them every single time.
I mean, it's the inconsistency issue for me showing its ugly head once again. We had great performances from both Creators and Dream tonight, but we look back at the match from Monday. We had some pretty good stuff happening from Crazy. Where was he the whole night? Where was Jarvis the whole night? We didn't really see a whole lot out of those two players. And with you having so much of a wishy-washy performance from some of your players on a match-to-match basis, and to be fair, this applies to Creators, Dream, and Mark as well. It's just they did good tonight. With the performance being so inconsistent, you just can't really rely on anyone in any sort of single match. You're just rolling the dice with who's going to show up.
Definitely need to be a little more consistent going forward, but I think Veli probably has a few more words. Would you say that they're quite your tempo?
No, they're not at my tempo right now. And now I'm pissed off. You know why? Because I have never seen Blue talk about a team like this, about how upset he is. Now, Tempo Storm, this... Stokes, he said, you gotta give him I don't give him nothing. This is a culmination of a year plus of team changes, practice, getting better. Butters is gone now. You brought in Sloppy. Sloppy didn't work out. You brought in Mark. Mark has been, Alfama said, and I'll give it to him. He's a really good player, respectable. He said, people say they're inconsistent, but it's not that. But I'm gonna say it, inconsistency. So Mark had a great showing today and yesterday, but before that, they lost as well, and that's why they're in this position. And when Mark, you know what? Bring up the highlights while I talk production. Let's give them something to look at. And, you know, while Mark was going, he was struggling in the past, you have players like Creators and Dreams stepping up. And then when Creators and Dreams were stepping up, you had Crazy stepping up. All these players wanted to have their moments at different times, but they didn't realize one thing. You're a team. And as a team, they have to get better together to beat these rosters. Now, those blowout matches they had against TSM and Oxygen, that was embarrassing. I don't buy that one bit. Like, that's as a team, you have to be better than that. And now, because of all of their failures leading up to this point, we're talking about a years plus of failure, right? They're in relegation spot. I have nothing against this team. I'm hard on them because I believe in them. I was hard on Mark, and look what Mark has been doing, and I've been praising him. I've been saying, this is what we've been expecting this whole time. Now it's almost too late. Temporal Storm, they're not even riding their own tempo at the moment. One more game is going to be the difference between them being in Tier 1 professional Rainbow Six Siege or Challenger League, and I'm gonna let you guys know now. You heard me talk about The Last Dance. They got beat. And why did they get beat? Because there's up-and-coming rising talent in Challenger League. Ape and the rest of these teams like Rent Free, they're ready to take that spot. So when relegation comes around, I don't want to hear excuses. I don't want to see inconsistencies, but we see that day is final, and that could be it for some of these players. So hopefully they work on their problems and get back to shooting straight, because they're going to need all the help they can get.
Now, in Stokes Blue, I want to definitely give you both a chance to respond, but my main question I want to pose to you is just like Veli said, knowing that we have so much talent coming up in Challenger League and knowing that Tempo Storm are going to be facing off against the winner of Challenger League, how do you see that going?
I mean, I think they're going to be prepared, right? Because that's the thing. That's the thing we talked to death with Tempo as well, is that they're out of game analysis team. Their coach, you know, any of the analysts actually have hired for their team. They've been doing a bang-up job. Their strategies look really solid. It's just the fact that we can't really count on any single player to consistently execute his role. And as a result of that, it just leads to really, like, random results in a lot of their rounds sometimes.
Yeah, that's the best way to put it. This team, or at least the back end, the staffing of Tempo Storm, has done such a good job. Whether it be research or strategy or what have you, there's so many things that this squad brings to the table. Even today, they were busting out things that I had not seen yet on some of these maps, and they were very unique and they worked. But the problem is for me is that it continues to fall flat on its face. And I really hate to, you know, single people out here, but Jarvis had one of the worst showings I've ever seen him play in my life. I've never seen Jarvis play this poor in my entire life, man. I mean, Jarvis for a very long time was a dominant professional player inside of Rainbow Six Siege. I need him to get back to that level, especially for this matchup coming up. We cannot have that Jarvis. We cannot have 3, 2, and 10 Jarvis on Villa. That's not okay at all, especially with how early he's getting killed. I mean, my man, you know how the game works. Play a little bit back, stop standing in these angles and letting Rexen fry you. It's not okay. These early kills continue to just stop any progress you guys are making. And it's not just Jarvis. I mean, as we were just previously talked about, there's quite a few things that are going on, but it seems that other players are trying to step up for Tempo Storm to get something done. The worst thing about this is I can tell you right now, if Tempo Storm wins that relegation game, there's roster moves happening.
Oh,
210%.
100%. But you know what I love about this roster, Sam? So the fact that they're struggling and they're failing, right? And they're in a relegation spot. On the journey, well, on their way there, we saw players stepping up to fight for their lives. I'm hoping that experience and them realizing how good they actually are, like Mark, like Creators, one of the most underrated entries in the league. I'll put that on everything I believe on because he has been a standout. Hopefully, I'm hoping that all comes together in that relegation game, and then they realize what type of team they really are. They have an identity crisis, and they need to realize they're stars, man. They need to shine.
And just to end the Jarvis point on a little bit of a positive note, to be fair to him, he did get one of the two 1vx clutches that the team managed to get that entire series. So he's at least built that. But that really just pushes the point forward even more, in my opinion. It's like, okay, we know you can do it, so why are there so many issues doing it just under normal circumstances?
Yeah, I think that the main thing is, just to kind of wrap up my thoughts with the bow, is that I don't think Jarvis is a bad player at all. I think Jarvis is a very, very, very good player, and he has been for a very long time. I think he's in a slump right now, whether it be mentally or physically, but you got to get past that, man. Next week is next week. Let it just wash off the back and continue on, because I can tell you right now, there's a lot of CL talent out there, and all of them are gunning for your spot. If they want it, and if they want it more than you, I can definitely tell
gonna
you
take it.
it's going to happen. I have watched a lot of these players, and I've watched a lot of them grow up inside of this scene. They are some absolute gunners. So protect your purse, get things going, get that money up, not your funny up. Let's see it happen.
Definitely. Very, very well said. And I think you really hit the nail on the head. The Challenger League players are hungry. They know that this is their shot and they're eager to take it. So let's see what's going to happen next, though. Let's pull up that schedule, because in my mind, there are a lot of question marks, a lot of things left to be answered, a lot of expectations, a lot of hope. Hopefully some of these questions are answered, though, on Friday, October 9th, when we're going to see Altiora face off versus Mirage in the Canada division. On Monday, we will have Oxygen versus Dark Zero and Disrupt versus the Sonics. And then on Wednesday, we will have TSM versus the loser of Oxygen versus Dark Zero, and United versus the loser of Disrupt versus the Sonics. What matches in particular are you three most looking forward to seeing?
Can I tell you the scariest thing about this bracket?
What's up?
The scariest thing is that it's October and it just got here so
Oh my
fast.
gosh,
That's the scariest thing, man. It's almost Halloween, folks. Like,
Jess, to answer your question, there's two matches. A lot of you would think that, a lot of viewers out there, the audience would think that Oxygen vs. Dark Zero would be the #1 game that we would all be excited to see. No, I'm excited to see Altiora versus Mirage. That's going to be a banger. These guys are fighting for their lives as well. But Disrupt versus Sonics, you have two teams that are drastic. Like, they're trying to show that they're a legitimate top 5, top 4 team. And this is it. They're standing in each other's way to show, hey, I belong in this NAL Major Qualifier, and you're not going to stop me from getting there. So we'll see if Sonics is really a top 4 team or not, and same with Disrupt.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment on the Disrupts versus Sonic match. Those two teams kind of been drifting around each other all stage so far, and this is going to be a great final test to kind of decide which one's above the other one as we get towards the end of the year here. And then, of course, the relegation match as well, or the team that sets up, the match that sets up one of these teams for relegation as well. That one's very important, as just like the last match that we played on Wednesday, that's going to be two teams playing their hearts out for survival.
Yep, well, we are nearing the end of our season of play. We have so many important things coming up. We just presented all of you with the times you can catch those, so don't miss them. But it's okay, because you know what? If you do miss anything, we'll be here for you to recap it for you next Thursday here on Inside the NAL. Be sure to catch us on social media at R6 Esports NA, and we'll see you next week.